Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows or the adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow. So in this episode, we have the team returning to, was it Liberty, Colorado? Basically the place they met Jonah Hex in the past, which they're meeting him again, and he's kind of like, oh great, here you come again. So I really like the fact is that when they kind of get there, because Nate's kind of been in this funk because it's kind of like, oh, even with the superpowers and everything, I'm back to being like the library dude. It's like I'm literally back in my old job. It's like I came on this adventure to kind of go out there, you know, especially now I have superpowers. I want to go be superhero, but now I'm being called to kind of be a library. You know? So it kind of causes him in the beginning to kind of like, he's like, no, I got this. So for when he's going in all full cowboy mode, kind of saying all these kind of cliche cowboy things. It's like, yeah, now y'all get out of here now and y'all don't come back. You hear, you know, stuff like that. Your stereotypical cowboy. I really like when he pops up and they're about to hang Hex and everything. They're shooting at him. He's blocking with the bullets with his hands. Bam, bam, bam. He doesn't even have to do that. He's just doing it to show off because he could easily just stand there and take the bullets. And then at one point catch one bullet in his teeth, which is very impressive. But it's just like you're just showing off, dude. So, but like I get, you know, I guess he just got too hyped about the whole superhero thing. It's just like, you know, trying to prove a point. You know, it's like I'm more than just a library nerd, you know, and history nerd. I am in fact a superhero too. But the main thing in this episode was the fact is that Jonah's after this guy named Turnbell, who basically history is kind of changing, and it seems like he's someone that obviously Hex has a past with, which at first he was very reluctant about talking about, especially to Sarah, because he's, you know, it's back in the days because like women didn't get no respect. You could argue women still don't get any respect, but still, like, especially not giving her any respect. It's like, oh, you're the captain? Really? And he's talking to Sarah later on. She's like, so tell me what's your history behind it. It's like, oh, I guess it's what happens. You sit around with a woman, you talk about your feelings and everything. And it's like, for one, just stops, you know, it's sad that you're generalizing all women. Once again, yes, it fits the time period. Women will just kind of look down upon it like that. It sucks, but it's also because it's like, that doesn't fit the mold for every woman, and it even especially doesn't fit it for Sarah, because Sarah's not big at talking about her feelings at all. She kind of keeps a lot of stuff to herself. It's something her and Oliver kind of have in common. The fact is that they're exactly like that. But that was just something, to me, that was the most ironic statement about ladies sitting around talking about their feelings. Like I said, she's not, I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe there are moments she opens up, but to me, Sarah keeps a lot of stuff on the inside. She doesn't really open up that much to people, especially after coming back from the dead. She definitely doesn't open up. Maybe back, you know, when she first popped up in Arrow as like, you know, Black Canary, then maybe I'd be like, she has kind of opened up then, but I don't know. Subsequently, since coming back to life, I don't think so, but nevertheless, it seems the ore that Turnbull was mining ended up being some dwarf star alloy, the same stuff that Ray uses to power his Atom suit, which I was because I was wondering, like, I was like, why hasn't he started reconstruction on a suit? Which he does later on in the episode. He talks about he's going to start making a new suit, but it's probably just because it's like dwarf star alloy is not that easy just to come across. But it's like, hey, we found a crap ton of it. It's like a little pebble of it is enough to kind of power his suit. So it's kind of like, what could like these huge, large boulders of it do? So apparently, also it can hurt Nate too, because he takes a bullet for Mick and it ends up piercing him, and it's just kind of like, holy crap, did not think that was going to happen. Which two things. One, I really like the design of what it looks like when, you know, Turnbull fires off a bullet that is made from dwarf alloy, star alloy. It's like, it's such a hard material. How did you chip off pieces enough? I mean, it's a dense material. I mean, I'm not very science fictional, science. I don't know, not just science fictional, but sciencey. So I could be 100% wrong about this. I know dense, like, even though it's a dense object, it's not extremely hard, is it? I was just thinking, like, how did you manage to just get that turned into a bullet? And it's like, why did you not share that with your man? But at the same time, it's kind of like, hey, you found it, so it's like, hey, I'm the one that gets to do it. I mean, I doubt there was that many, but nevertheless, the special effect of when it kind of goes off like that, kind of blue fire it emits, I thought that was just kind of neat. And also, I found it funny, the moment it happened to him, I was like, oh man, I guess Dwarf Star's working on the Man of Steel. And the moment I said that, I kind of laughed to myself a little bit. I was like, huh. Which then brought up a question in my head. It's like, would Dwarf Star bullets work on Superman too or not? I mean, I don't know. Like I said, because that's, like, depending on what adaptations you go by, it's like, you know, if you're strong enough, you can hurt Superman. If you have the strength to match him, he's not 100% invincible unless you have strength to match him. I think magic can kind of do a number on Superman too, not just controlling him, but just hurting him in general. That's just, I keep bringing it up all the time, but Smallville, that's kind of where I picked that up from, because that was something that could actually hurt Clark. It's one of the few things in the world that can, besides, you know, kryptonite and whatnot, but that's beside the point. I just thought that was kind of interesting. And also another thing was the fact is that that Nate had decided to kind of came up with the design for his new suit, he was like in his spare time he was trying to come up with a new design for his suit, because apparently every time he steals up, it ends up kind of stretching his clothes out a little bit, so he's kind of having a hard time kind of you know, readjusting to that. So it's like he needs a new suit, which Ray fortunately makes for him at the end of the episode, which looks pretty sweet. I actually got spoiled for me a little bit because of all the previews for the crossover night stuff, but you know, I'm not going to talk much about that. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but it looks pretty nice. I mean, obviously we saw it, like I said, it's like a quick second during the previews that you got to see it, but we haven't gotten to see him put it on in the show or not, so, but you know, I'll get to that soon enough. So, but he was talking about that. He's like, okay, I just want to make that for you in the meantime, you know, while at the same time I'm working on my suit. So that's going to be interesting. Like, I was wondering, like, is Ray going to go suitless the entire time? It's like, because I was wondering, like, did he not have access to the technology to make his suit or whatever? Or was it now, I guess because mainly it was kind of, well, what's the point of building the suit when I don't have a power source to power, like a dwarf star alloy to kind of, you know, make up for that? But then it's like, no, he got like a good chunk of it. So I guess that kind of inspired him, like, hey, time to make the suit. So. But overall, it was just kind of like a fun episode, especially when you had the fact is that Mick was sent in, because Sarah's like, okay, Mick, go in there, cause a problem, because you're kind of the Hellraiser of the group. And he's kind of like, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. And it looks like he's about to start some hell, because they even sent Amaya Vixen in to kind of keep tabs on him. It's kind of like she kind of, as she said herself, I guess I drew the short end of the straw, because it is kind of interesting how it is, the show is trying to pair them together. It's got, because like last season, it was Mick and Ray. Obviously, Mick had Cole to kind of, Captain Cole to kind of, you know, start to kind of balance off of. But one of the relationships he built last season was with Ray. That was one of the other few people he's close with. And you kind of see the return of that, but now also the introduction of Amaya Vixen, kind of seeing her a little bit more. And it's just kind of like her being there to kind of balance him out. Because I like the fact is that him and Turnbull, he was supposed to be kind of kicking ass and taking names, but the plan kind of backfired when Mick started hanging out with him and they're drinking and they're having fun. Because basically he kind of thinks of the same way. Because Mick, you know, coming from a very interesting criminal perspective on things, and it's being like, oh yeah, he's like, basically Turnbull's like, I want to keep the Wild West wild, you know. And it's like Mick can understand. He's like, yeah, like men like us aren't supposed to be behind cages and stuff like that. So it's getting him super hyped. But when stuff does kind of hit the fan, when Jonah kind of comes in, turns into a full-on out brawl, and you got Mick going crazy, got two guns in each hand, firing it off in the air, hitting people, and just kind of getting rowdy. Because another part of this episode was Amaya kind of talking to, and the fact is that she, you know, once again, she doesn't believe Mick is exactly the person he pretends to be. He pretends to be this animal that's out of control. And she's, at first she said that's not true. Like, he's just, because she's like heard from the other things the team has said about the stuff he's done. Like, he's been there for them, you know. He likes to think of himself as an outsider, because, I mean, when you put it in perspective, he kind of is, because he's the only one that was kind of there because of someone else. Because out of everyone there, Rip kind of recruited everyone for their specific reason. The only reason why he brought Mick along was because he needed Snart, and him and Mick and Snart were kind of a package deal. That was kind of a thing for last season. So he always felt like probably even more so of an outsider subsequently since then. Probably even more so after becoming Kronos and everything. But also a side note, I've never noticed Mick's burns before. Has that come up before? I mean, I maybe it hasn't. I've just been completely oblivious to it. But this is the first time I really blatantly noticed like the burns on his arms, like when he was kind of working out and stuff like that, and he took his gloves off and everything, because he was like telling Amaya, it's like, I'm not going to, like, you want me to be open up to you, be a little sappy, tell you like I had some kind of bad childhood that kind of made me into the way I am. He's like, I didn't. I'm just kind of made this way. And Amaya eventually in the episode kind of agrees with being like, yes, there is an animal in you, but that doesn't have to be all there is to you. Because like, I don't know how to interpret that. Like, whether that was just kind of an animalistic thing of wanting to be around explosion when everything goes off, when they're setting the dynamite and everything, and it's like, so we got about a minute too, you need to get out of here. And then Amaya turns to him, it's like, you mean we? He's like, yeah, that's what I meant. It's like, so could it be a side of him that's like, I kind of want to die because Snart's an all-around type of thing, because my only real friend is, or whether it's just because it's like that pyromaniac within him, the animal within him being like, oh, I need to stay behind to watch this explosion. But also you saw it a little bit when he was like, to me, it was never something like, Mix kind of handled things his own way, but to me, I guess they're kind of pushing it a little more. Because he never seemed very animalistic. I mean, he is kind of like a creature of instinct. He kind of does what he wants to. He always has. But it seems like they're very pushing it. Because it seems like he was a lot more savage this episode, especially when he was beating those dudes down with the shovel, and Amaya had to tell him to kind of like not give in to the animal and whatnot, so they can run away before the explosion happens. So I don't know. It's just kind of, just like I said, interesting development seeing her like, because at first, like out of any person, she disliked Mick the most, especially when she met him, because out of anyone, she believed that he was the one that killed Rex. So, but it's like subsequently, she's kind of gotten closer to him than probably anyone else on the team, which instinctively, there's a part of my brain that goes like, so this ain't going to lead to some kind of Mick and Amaya thing, is it? That'd be kind of weird in the sense of the fact that they started off like not liking each other, but I think it is just going to be a friendship thing. If it ended up being more, I'd be surprised. I mean, granted, this whole thing is about getting revenge for Rex, but the thing is also like, hey, if we stop, I mean, the one who killed him was, I mean, because that's the whole thing too. It's like, I mean, Eobard is technically dead in the timeline, but you're seeing his past actions and stuff like that, so it's kind of like, he's already destined to die, so it's like, is there a way to actually save Rex, or is there much more to this than we realize? The fact is that in some shape or form, Rex is actually still alive, and they just haven't gotten to the point of, I'm not about to go down that rabbit hole. It's going to be too complicated, time travel and everything. Time is always, very, very complicated. Probably the highlighted episode is when you have Nate stopping that train. That was pretty impressive. I just love how he's kind of psyching himself up. He's jumping up and down. He's like, okay, whew, I got this. And he stops the train, and it looks so amazing. It just like dragging him back, like knocking up the track and everything. And when he stops it, he's like, dude, did you see that? You had to have seen that, right? He's like, are you okay? He's like, no, I'm not. But I stopped the train. He's like, whoa, getting so hyped. It's so cool to see a genuine reaction, because as someone who's a superhero, like if you had superhero powers and you did something like that, that's the general reaction. You wouldn't deny, wouldn't be able to keep your excitement within. Like, that's the cool thing. Is like, Nate's kind of like, a kid who just I mean, if you want to put in, I'm sure in DC perspective, I mean, I guess it depends on the adaptations of it, because it's like, to me, like kind of bringing it back, it's like Flashpoint. Shazam, for example. Shazam is like a kid who ended up getting magical powers and can transform into like a different form, like an adult form with magic powers. If you go by the Flashpoint version, there's like kids that, whole bunch of kids come together to become Shazam. I always thought it was one kid, but maybe it's like something happened in Flashpoint that kind of created so like multiple kids had to own the power. I don't know. Not about to get into it. The point is that was, he is like a kid with superpowers. So that's just all I really want to point out there. So, and then another storyline element in this episode was the whole thing with Martin. Like, apparently he's got memories of some lady in his head. And he's kind of like, he doesn't know what they're from because it's not someone he knows, but the memories make him feel like he knows her, even going as far as saying, like, I might love her. And then you have Jax being like, okay, your Clarissa is going to be super pissed at you. But then he's like, but maybe Clarissa might not even be there at all, because he's wondering, like, what does this all mean? It's just kind of like, because he was thinking, like, maybe in his interactions with his younger self, it's starting to make his life kind of alter, that basically kind of going along the same lines as Frequency, that his basic, instead of remembering both timelines, it's kind of like, well, put it in a more DC fashion, to kind of put it towards DC shows. It's like Flashpoint, where instead of eventually the current timeline start taking over his mind, because that's the thing, like, this is all kind of going on the point of Flashpoint. So it's like, this is kind of existing on the Flashpoint timeline already. That's kind of what, everything that happened in the first season was kind of on the floor. Like, at that point in time, Flashpoint had already happened and everything. So it makes you wonder how much of their lives are different. I mean, because we don't really know much about their lives. So it'd be kind of interesting to find out, like, what about their lives might have changed. Because I haven't really ever thought about that. Because it's like, while they were kind of off time traveling, technically Flashpoint happened, even though technically Flashpoint had already happened by the time they started time traveling. Like the moment they started time traveling, Flashpoint had already kicked in just because of time and everything. It's super confusing, I know. But it's like, is Martin remembering someone else's memories? Is kind of what it's going. I mean, and this would all subsequently happen at the same time. They're keeping the whole secret about Barry's words because, like, you know, because they're finding out that, you know, there's another speedster that's working with Damien Dark, and it just leads to so many questions of, like, you know, is this connected to that? Is it the whole timeline erasing his original? Because if it was that case, he'd be remembering this particular woman. This memory would be a new time. Like his brain would be settling with the fact that, okay, this is the timeline, so I'm remembering the stuff that's kind of changed now. But he doesn't recognize that also maybe it's someone else's memories. Is something connected to Ronnie maybe? Is there a part of him that's still connected to him? I don't know. It's hard to say like what that exactly means. Maybe he is right. Maybe I don't know. Like, I really have no idea. We won't really, I guess, get an answer to that until the next episode, which there won't be one next week because this show, it seems, is a little bit ahead of the others because the crossover events don't start until November 28th. So that's like not next week, but the week after next. So everything else, the other three, Supergirl, Arrow, and Flash will have another episode. And then the week after that will be the crossover events. And it seems like Legends won't return until then, which will be December 1st. Because, I mean, like I said, production schedules, where they are in their storylines, you know, all that other stuff. So it's kind of a little bit of ahead of the curve because the moment, like at the end of the episode, Sarah is like, we need to go back to the present. Our friends need intro. So I guess then we'll kind of really get an answer to it. It makes you wonder, is this possible? I mean, Legend's storyline about, you know, the war that Barry from 2056 is talking about. It makes me wonder, could it be what's happening in a crossover event? Maybe, maybe not. It's more so than anything, probably like the storyline that, Legends is going down. It's going to be interesting when we get back and it's just like, dude, because I'm super excited for this crossover. It's just, it looks so good. I'm losing my damn mind. It's like, it's too much for me to handle. I could barely, hands down, my favorite was like the Supergirl and Flash crossover. And now, you know, because not only was that across different worlds, that was also across different television stations. Now that everything's on the same television station, it's like time travel, vigilantes, aliens and metahumans all coming together, and it's so cool. And it's still like another week plus away, but it's still, I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. It's just, I'm super excited for it. So I'm curious to see where Legends picks up next week and everything. I mean, because really that's all I really wanted to talk about in this episode. So I'm spending a little more time talking about that than I was at the episode. I do apologize about that. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.